Michael's win and fucking George.
Welcome back to PonyFans Live, brought to you by Lakewood's First and 10, northeast corner of Mockingbird and Abrams in Dallas. Gameday Cloth, love your team, love your clothes. Visit their store in Plano to see their new fall line. All their long sleeve gear is in, including a lot of new SMU gear. And PonyFans.com, the oldest, largest, and only free website dedicated to SMU athletics and pony fans everywhere. Coming up this week, the Mustangs are going out to El Paso to face UTEP. Last year, you all earned bowl eligibility by beating UTEP. This year, you got to go do it on the road. Does it feel any different this year?
A little bit. We've heard that, you know, playing in El Paso, it's a kind of tough environment. But we had a really good victory last week, so we're really pumped up and really confident, and we had a really good weekend practice so far. So we just got to keep it up and you know, go in there with an attitude that, you know, that's our game to take, you know.
Now that you've done it, now that you went to the Hawaii Bowl last year and the expectations are a little higher, when you talk to your teammates, is there a different feel in practice and after practice when you're going to class, that kind of thing?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's more professional now, you know. You can't slack around because everyone kind of knows you now, you know, and they, you know, point you out and they're like, you know, you have to behave a little bit more.
Coach, from your standpoint, is the preparation different when you've done it before? Now people expect you to win, become bowl eligible, go back to a bowl game. Do you and the rest of the staff have a different approach going into the UTEP game this year than you did a year ago when you faced the Miners?
No, we don't. I mean, everything's still the same. You know, we approach each day, each practice the same. We do the same things. Nothing changes. You know, there are some big games, but it doesn't change the things that we do each and every day. You know, we prepare the same. And just from a standpoint of our past success doesn't mean we're going to have future success. And so just hopefully the guys see what it takes to get to that point, and we continue doing the same things and doing the right things in order to ensure that we do have future success.
Very true. I did an interview this morning with a radio station in El Paso, and the guy who was hosting the interview said they've had a bunch of injuries on their offensive line, and he asked specifically if you and Taylor Thompson and Marquise Frazier are sort of licking your chops a little bit when you watch their offensive line on film. Is that true? What are the impressions you get of their offensive line when you've been scouting them?
Well, they're pretty big, and they definitely can get after us if we don't do our fundamentals. I mean, it's kind of hard to get after them because we don't know who's going to be starting. You know, they have guys, like you said, they have injury guys, so we don't know who's going to be in their lineup. But you know, we have to win the line of scrimmage to be able to play well.
On their depth chart and in their game notes and everything, the guy who they expect to start opposite you, a guy named Will Ozelinski, looks about like you. He's 6'8", he's listed at 280. What does he look like to you in terms of the kind of player he is and the challenges that he'll present to you on Saturday night?
Well, as much as I've seen him on film so far, you know, it's he has a pretty good stance. I mean, and you gotta definitely work your hand moves and try to not get run into him that much, you know, because he will grab you and you know, just hold on to you. So it'll be a challenge. You know, last week I had a 6'8" guy as well, so it was a challenge.
Coach, on the other side, I almost wonder if your guys are licking their chops as well, because UTEP goes with a 4-3 defense for the most part. Their front four doesn't look very big. They got the one guy in the middle who's 6'2", 320. Other than that, nobody's over 270 pounds. Do you look at a line like that and figure your guys who average close to 300 should be able to physically dominate that group and, as you like to say, impose your will?
Yeah, well, I like to think that we could physically dominate every group we go against,
right.
but and I hope that's what we do out there. But because they're a little shorter, they're a little bit stouter. They play with better leverage. They have good hand placement. A lot of that comes from them running the 3-4 in the pass. So many of these guys have a lot of experience in two-gapping people, getting their hands on guys, and playing with leverage, like I just alluded to, and that presents a problem in itself. And it's just one of those kind of things, inside hands win every time, and so we have to get our hands on them early and often. They have to be physical with them. They send in 2 and 3 strings of guys and try to get guys in and out because they're a little bit smaller, so they try to keep their guys fresh. And we just have to pound them, and hopefully as the game progresses, by the 3rd and 4th quarter, they break and they get a little bit demoralized, and then we just, do the things that we want to do.
They've got a couple of guys on their defensive line who have 2 sacks apiece. Nobody else has more than 1. And the guys with multiple sacks are backups. When you're scouting these guys and preparing your offensive line to protect Kyle Padron and to open up lanes for Zach Line, what concerns you about their front 4? Where does most of their pressure come from?
From the outside. I mean, they blitz and do different things of that nature, but they have one in particular that's a backup, and he has a really good get-off. And, if a tackle gets his hands on him early, or beats him to a junction point, then he can have a little bit of trouble. But more often than not, he's gone against bigger tackles, and he's been able to get the edge on them and be disruptive in the backfield. So it's one of those things, Beacham will have to have a good game as usual as our left tackle, and he'll be facing them both. And JT will see him from time to time, but really it's going to pretty much come down to what Beacham could do against him when he's put on island, and I think he'll do fine. And that goes to what we were talking about before in terms of them playing a number of guys. And they may not be that big, but they're a productive group, and they can generate some pressure, and they can be disruptive.
When you look at their offense on tape, their running back, Donald Buckram, has had a lot of success in the past couple of years. This past week against Tulane rolls out a freshman, Orleans Darkwa, who had some good success in the first half. Do you see any similarities between Darkwa and Buckram in terms of the style or the plays that are used? And what can you do to try to keep Buckram from having the same kind of success that Darkwa had Saturday against Tulane?
Well, we definitely have to play better. We had a lot of mental mistakes in the Tulane game. To keep the UTEP running back in contain, we have to play our basics. We have to play our fundamentals. We have to be in our gaps, do our responsibilities, play physical, play fast. If we do all of these things, I'm pretty sure we can just, shut the run game down.
Is that still the priority? Their quarterback, Trevor Vitito, first of all, he's very successful. He won a state championship in high school. He has started, I think, for 4 years at UTEP, and he's got a lot of yards through the air, and he also runs pretty well. Is your focus going in, shut down the run, and see if he can beat you through the air, or is Vitito just as much of a concern as Buckram?
Well, right now we have, had them both in the loop. We have to shut down the run game first for sure, because Tulane had a lot of success running the ball last week, so we're thinking that they might come out and try to run it on us. But the pass game, he has a really good arm. He has a cannon arm, so we have to be ready for that. And like I said, we have to play fast, we have to play physical to be able to win.
Coach, when you talk about protecting Kyle, opening lanes for Zach, you look at UTEP's defense, and they're giving up an average of 205 yards a game through the air and 170 on the ground. The numbers are pretty close, but in today's era of pass-happy spread offenses all over the place, those are actually a little lopsided. That's more rushing than a lot of teams traditionally have been giving up. Do you look at those numbers, 170 rushing yards per game, and think this is going to be a game where you sort of ride Zach Line and load him up and see if he can wear them down?
No, as a former offensive lineman, I would love to do that, but that's not who we are. We're a passing team, and we have a tremendous amount of faith in Kyle, and we know he's going to go out there and he's going to light it up, and so that's what we're going to do. And when the running opportunities present themselves, we'll take full advantage of it. But we're a passing team, and that's what we're going to do.
So even with all the success that Zach has had this year, which has been considerable, still pass first to set up the run, not vice versa, no matter how much he does on the ground.
It's pass first. We'd like to get 600 yards passing the game if we could. So, that's just that's just something that happens. Obviously we have to run the ball at some point. But like I said, we're a passing team, and that's who we are, and that's what we're going to do. Sometimes it calls for us to run, to run the ball, but that's not necessarily what we want to do all the time. And we want to dictate the flow of the game, and we want to do what we want to do, and that's pass the ball.
You've talked ever since you got to SMU about the mentality of the offensive line and imposing your will, and I think controlled chaos is another one of your phrases that you've used. When you see a team, as you did this past weekend, put up 500 yards plus of offense, but didn't always get into the end zone, is that something where the offensive line sort of takes it personally and maybe tries to crank up that physical domination even more?
Yeah, I think it starts with us. Whether it's offensive line or defensive line, I think the team feeds off of that. And on both sides of the ball, like Marcus just said, you need to be physical. And if we're physical, we're running after the ball. Defense running after the ball, offensive line finishing, diving over piles, finishing guys off, different things like that is contagious. And it carries over to the receivers, carries over to the linebackers and everybody else, but it starts up front. One of the things we always used to say in the league is we're overworked and underappreciated. Don't get a lot of glamour, but everything starts up front. And just, it's one of those things, we had some success in the game last week, but that's not the way we wanted to go. We want to come out, we don't want to warm up and get to that point. We want to start off and come out with bullets flying, some people laugh about that when I say controlled chaos is 7 seconds of violence, but I think the game should be played a certain way. And I think if you play that way, good things are going to happen. And you got to play that way every play and every day. It's not a sometimes thing. And so we need to be a little more consistent, but a lot of that comes from us being a young team. But as the season progresses, we're getting progressively better, and we need to just be mature about it. And the success we had at the end of that game, we can't look at it and think it's just going to happen this week. We need to go in there and we need to start off that way from the start and finish that way.
One of the unique things about playing UTEP, at least for SMU in terms of your schedule, is you're playing at altitude this week, high altitude. Dallas is 400 and something feet above sea level. El Paso is 3,700. Does that concern you at all? Do you worry about fatigue setting in? And do you have to rotate more players in and out a lot?
If you start worrying about things and your mind starts to get weaker, we've been, staying positive. We've been, getting ready for the game. We don't worry about the stuff that we can't control. That's a thing we can't control, We have to focus on the things we can control. Is like the game, how we play, how physical we are. If we have to substitute people, we're going to do that to keep fresh bodies in there. But it's going to be a physical game, and it's going to be a tough one. But
have you competed at altitude even in track?
Well, I've been to a training camp in South Africa in that kind of altitude for over a month. But it's a tough thing at first. But once you're up there, it's pretty easy.
Right, and you'll be ready Saturday night.
Yes, sir.
All right, the game is 8 o'clock Central Time. The radio broadcast has been moved to 570 KLIF. The game also can be seen locally in Dallas-Fort Worth on Metro Sports for Time Warner cable customers. Again, this has been PonyFans Live. Once again, please thank my guests, offensive line coach Adrian Klemm, defensive end Margus Hunt.